Hi, I'm Karen Lottis with the Gaithersburg Community Museum, and welcome to our first Green Cocktails program. This series will explore the concept of sustainability, how it impacts us, and the simple steps we can take to help the world. I want to thank, before we start the program, I want to thank Montgomery Green Drinks, and the City of Gaithersburg's sustainability team for helping bring this about, and the NISE network for helping fund it. Before I introduce our speaker, I also want to thank Miscellaneous Distillery for being our first cocktail partner. I hope you all have a drink to enjoy while attending tonight's program. Our speaker for tonight is Deborah Moran, Sustainability Coordinator for the City of Gaithersburg. She'll be giving us an introduction to sustainability and some things that we can do at home. Welcome, Deb.
Thank you so much for having me. I am going to try to share my screen, hopefully without any problems. All right. So like Karen said, my name is Deb. I'm the Sustainability Coordinator for the City of Gaithersburg. I've been here for just about a year, which means I've been working most of this mostly from home. So I do have a sometimes loud virtual coworker. He's licking some peanut butter now, but I do apologize if he barks. I'll try to quickly get him to stop. But yeah, so like Karen said, I want to really talk about what sustainability is. It's one of my favorite conversations to have, because most people, when you tell them you're a sustainability coordinator, they go, what? So let's get started. So I like to think what most people think sustainability is tree hugging. It's about loving the planet, which is a great and important part of sustainability, but it's just a part. What sustainability actually is it's finding a balance between protecting the planet, economic prosperity, and people, social issues. So we look at sustainability, and in order to truly achieve it, we need to balance the needs of all of those three things, which can be a lot to describe and can be a little overwhelming. So other ways that we look to define sustainability, or the way the City of Gaithersburg defines sustainability, is meeting the needs of current generations without sacrificing the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Or you can summarize it down even more and say we're borrowing the planet from the future. So everything that we do today is kind of like a rental. We're not going to be here forever. And then I really always like to note that a lot of people talk about sustainability as saving the planet, but I'm going to say it's not about saving the planet. I'm going to say, again, it's about saving the future generation. So if it becomes too hot on this globe for us to be able to live our comfortable lives the way we do now, the earth isn't going to go anywhere. It's the people who are going to suffer. So again, people, planet, profit. Those are the three P's that we're trying to meet when we're talking about sustainability. And then when we're talking about sustainability, we often have to use metrics because that's how people understand things. Oh, sorry, I'm jumping ahead of myself. So we talk about all these different facets of sustainability, and that's where the 17 goals of sustainable development come from. So the UN has made this list as the 17 things that make sustainability work. So you'll see things like no poverty, no hunger, reduced inequalities, less waste. So some of the things we more typically think of as sustainability related initiatives, but we also have things like decent work and economic growth, peace, justice, and strong institution. And then my favorite, partnership for the goals, meaning working all together in order to achieve this. So now I'll get onto the metrics. So a lot of times people talk about carbon emissions, and I think that becomes a big overwhelming thing for people to understand. So what we talk about when we're talking about metrics and sustainability, we're talking in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. One of the most common greenhouse gas emissions is carbon, but there are several others. So there are actually 6 common greenhouse gas emissions, but since we're most comfortable with carbon, we measure things in CO2e. So that is carbon dioxide equivalency. So when you hear people talk about methane, they are talking about a greenhouse gas. They're talking about a greenhouse gas that is actually much more potent than CO2. So methane has a higher global warming potential. So you'll see a lot of focus on things about methane, and there's been a lot of work to reduce those things in the past. Global warming potential is kind of used to describe how long something lingers in the atmosphere and kind of what its potential will be. So a way to understand it would be for every 1 metric ton of CO2 that's in the air. I said that backwards. For every 1 ton of methane in the air is the equivalent of 24 metric tons of CO2. So you can see why in the past a lot more work has been done to get rid of things with a higher global warming potential. So because this is how we measure things, I wanted to give everybody kind of an insight into how we're doing in the city. So the latest greenhouse gas emissions inventory that we have for the city is 2018, and that's a pretty quick turnaround. It takes a long time to get the data and to crunch the numbers. We get this data with partners at the Metropolitan Washington Council of Government and ICLEI, which is the Local Governments for Sustainability. So you can see over the years that we have been mostly trending down, which is great and exactly how we want to be. If any of you are more familiar with Montgomery County's work on sustainability, you know that they have a vision to be emitting 0. So clearly we still have a lot of work and a lot to do, but again, we have done some great things. And so since we're talking about sustainability and things that we can do, I want to focus the rest of my presentation on these 2 big key parts that I think we can impact. So the first big one that we'll see is residential energy. And so you can see in 2005 to 2018, our population has definitely grown, but our use of residential energy or our emissions related to residential energy have shrunk. And that's because of a lot of reasons, and we'll go over them soon. And then the second one that I want to talk about is our transportation and our mobile sources, because again, that's one of the biggest things that we have to deal with. Okay, so residential energy use. Some of the biggest reasons that we've seen that major decline in residential energy use from 2005 to 2018 has been a cleaner electrical grid. So a cleaner electrical grid is referring to something that we're not using coal to generate the energy. So that's going to be your solar power or your wind energy. And so one thing that we can do is change your energy source. So most people don't know that Maryland is an energy choice state, meaning that you can choose who your energy provider is. I personally invest in wind energy, so I select wind energy on the bottom of my bill. So whether you pay Potomac Edison, Pepco, BGE, you can have these options to pay for wind energy. It sometimes is a little bit more expensive, but again, you're investing in it. Not everybody I know has the option to do that, so there are other things that you can do to try to cut energy costs more directly. If your home is able to do solar panels, or you can invest in community solar. There are a ton of initiatives and a ton of support networks there. The city partners with Solar United Neighbors to try to find the best funding in order to get some of those things accomplished. But while we think it's important to focus on cleaning up the energy grid, we understand that for people and profit, that's not always possible. So there's not always a ton of money available to do these big major investments. But there are some ways that you can still save money doing some of our more traditional energy reduction initiatives, things like turning off the lights, but there are other bigger things that you can do at little cost to kind of reduce your overall energy use. And so the first thing I want to talk about in terms of reducing your energy use is virtual home energy audits. Pepco, Potomac Edison, all of your utilities do provide free virtual home energy audits or home energy audits. Whether or not they're offering in person will vary. And of course, during this time period may change very frequently. So I suggest you check your appropriate utility website. But what they'll do is they'll either have somebody go around the house with you in person or via phone and identify issues or areas where you can improve your energy consumption. They'll even send you lights or provide you with tools or things that you need that are simple, quick fixes. And then they'll also help you identify like areas where you may not have enough insulation or areas where you may have other concerns like your windows are drafty. And they'll provide some quick tips or things for you to do in that aspect. The Montgomery County Public Library also offers thermal heat cameras that you can use to help identify areas in your house that are using more energy than other areas. So it's basically just like a camera that you walk around with, and things will turn bright red when a lot of heat or a lot of energy is being used. Or if you see around your windows a very cool blue, that means you're losing a lot of energy through those areas. And so those are things that you can do just to identify some of the issues that you have. And as long as you've been paying your electric bill, you've been paying into this Empower Maryland fund. And a lot of people don't realize it because it's just a very small line item on the bottom of your electric bill. But everyone who pays their electric bill does pay into this fund. And this fund offers rebates for energy efficiency initiatives in your home. So if the virtual home energy audit helped you identify that you needed new installation, you can look on Empower Maryland and find some rebates in order to make that possible. So there are a lot of resources out there that can help you achieve some energy efficiency goals. And I won't bore you with every single one of them because this feels a little weird that I'm just talking and I can only see myself and not all of you. But I'll address, you can visit Montgomery County's montgomeryenergyconnection.com to find all sorts of resources, or you can even email me directly. My email will be at the end of this presentation. So there are even more things that you can do from home to help advance clean energy. One of the positive things that came out of this pandemic has been that most organizations that weren't operating online now have a lot of advocacy work and a lot of ways to get things done online. I just picked one organization, the Maryland Energy Efficiency Group, and they will teach you lessons or provide resources, again, to help you figure out how you can promote clean energy in our area. If you want to encourage our government to invest in more solar or allow more opportunities for renewable energy sources to be generated at home. So there's tons of different things that you can do, all without ever having gotten out of your chair. So the second big emitting resource that we talked about was transportation. Transportation tends to be a tougher one for a lot of people because we all already have our cars. And investing in a new electric vehicle is really expensive. But there are some things that can help reduce transportation emissions right at the source. So again, of course, electric vehicles are going to be a great option. They did just recently extend the federal grant rebates that you can get for electric vehicles. So if you're interested in doing that, again, you can reach out to me and we can point you in the right directions for logistics in your situation, but dealers are also very helpful. The map that you see is all of the electric vehicle charging stations currently in the city or right or outside the city of Gaithersburg. So there's a ton of places to do this, especially if you're traveling locally. But if you already have your car, it may be able to run on ethanol 85, which is another type of gas that just has fewer emissions associated with it. The city of Gaithersburg's fleet will be able to be transitioned to ethanol 85 once we get a new tank up and running, and that we're expecting to have a pretty dramatic result on the city's fleet emissions. Also, if you happen to have a diesel vehicle, biodiesel, again, is always a preferred option, and you can check local stations to see if they have that. And then, of course, the best thing to do would just to be take a bike or walk or have no emissions at all. But we know in a very densely populated area with a lot of commuters that's not always possible. So if we want to reduce transportation, or we talk about transportation reduction, we want to talk about public transportation, of course, which I know is very scary now for a lot of people. And it may seem unsafe to be close to so many people, but this pandemic will end one day and we'll be allowed to travel again. And so the county is continuing to work towards having these faster, more efficient electric vehicles, electric buses to take people around places, which again, one day we'll be able to do again. And there is some projections. Some people think that after the pandemic and we get through this, we'll see an uptick in the use of public transportation as people recognize kind of the need to take less of a toll on the planet. The other transportation reduction activity that we can do that I don't think a lot of people associate with transportation, so I'm excited to talk about, is to eat seasonably or eat locally. Well, both, eating seasonably and eating locally. So food in the world, food and agriculture is one of the biggest emitters of greenhouse gas emissions, and a huge portion of that comes from your food transportation. And if you think about it, like if you're getting a banana, that banana came from somewhere not in this region, so it had a long, long way to go. So if you can try to look for alternative foods that, like, it's January, so there's going to be a lot of green things up here, but there's always options to find something that's just a little bit more seasonable or local. And we have a lot of great farmers markets in the city. There's the Thursday at Casey, I want to say, but I could be lying that it's at Casey on Thursdays. Or you can opt into a CSA and get produce delivered right to your house that came from around this area. So eating seasonably and eating locally is one of the biggest things that we can do to actually reduce our emissions without changing the source of those emissions. And then, of course, we have advocacy. So there is the Maryland Advocates for Sustainable Transportation that work on all sorts of issues like the expanding of 270, the maglev train, all sorts of bigger things. And you're welcome to reach out to them. And again, because they're online, they've put a lot of things online. They've kind of always had things online because they don't want you to travel to learn from them. But you can find more resources there. And then more specifically within the city, we have our own transportation committee. They meet regularly to discuss transportation issues in the city and advise the mayor and city council on actions that they should take. If transportation is specifically something that you're really passionate about, I encourage you to join that committee. But we do also have an environmental affairs committee. I'm the staff liaison for that committee. And so I encourage everyone to visit and talk with us during those meetings. Again, you can always email me to find out more information about those meetings, and I'm happy to get you on the list, get you invited, have you bring issues that you'd like the committee to address to the mayor and city council. And so I know I talked a lot about big picture things, because I think that a lot of times when we talk about sustainability, we talk about turning the lights off or turning off the sink while you're brushing your teeth. But there are so many other things that we can focus on. And there are some smaller things that we can do. We just have to understand the root cause of why we're doing them. So if our goal is to reduce emissions, then we can understand why we're doing these different things. There are a lot of great resources that can help provide you very specific actions if that's something that you would find more helpful. So one of my favorite is The Lazy Man's Guide to Saving the World. And you can simply look up an item and you never leave your couch and find something to do. And so we'll provide links for that. There's also the city released 50 actions for the 50th Earth Day that we celebrated last year in 2020. And there are, again, that was entirely focused on things you could do without leaving your home because, of course, April was right at the beginning of this pandemic. So again, I'd encourage you to check that out. And I'd also encourage you to subscribe to the Green in Gaithersburg newsletter through the city. That is a quarterly newsletter that comes out that specifically focuses on telling you what we're learning about as city staff, what we think is important for you to know about, and also includes a lot of links and lets you know about resources that exist. And then, like I mentioned, Montgomery County has issued a draft climate action plan, and you're more than welcome to go through and provide comment for that as well. So that's really exciting. And then the one thing that I would ask you to do more than anything is if you're looking at this stuff, if you can't do it, if you're unsure, talk to somebody about it. Talk to somebody about your successes. Talk to somebody about your concerns or your worries or things you're unsure about. We have this, I don't know if it's appropriate to call it a joke in sustainability, but this saying that the best way to predict where new solar panels will be installed is to find where new solar panels have been installed. Meaning that people will learn from your actions and they'll build off from you. And that's really how sustainability grows. That's what it means to be a partnership in this change. It means no matter what we're doing or what we're working on, we're looking at things through a greener mindset. So with that, I guess I'll leave my my name up for everyone to see. My email is deborah.moran@gaithersburgmd.gov. And again, please feel free to reach out to me with any questions or concerns you might have, things we didn't necessarily discuss or cover in this presentation. I'm more than happy to chat with you at any time. Thanks.
That was great. Thanks, Deb. We do have some questions coming through, as well as some comments. So Jeanette Fellner, who's with 1 Montgomery Green, also points out that most products have a place of origin listed. So you know how far it had to get to you. So just a reminder to people to
there is also a tool online called the food calculator. So if there isn't a place of origin on it, you can type in, say you got a pomegranate, you can type in pomegranate and it will give you an average of how many emissions were used in order to get that food to you. So
yeah, well, so actually recently my children wanted strawberries and I told them to buy frozen because any fresh strawberries a long way and were not sustainably purchased. So, so that's my own little, realization, like there are things that we can have all year, but they don't always have to be fresh to still be good.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of things we talk about too, like another fun phrase that's used in the industry, which is weird, is we're not asking everyone to do zero waste perfectly. We're asking everyone to try zero waste imperfectly. So again, if you're craving for some strawberries and you need some strawberries, I'm not going to yell at you for doing that. I'm not going to be upset. I mean, we all have our cravings, but it's just about being more conscious of the decisions that we're making.
Yeah, I mean, since I started planning this series, I've just become more conscious, and I think that that's the point of it. Is that we want to start these conversations that get people kind of thinking about. It wasn't like an imposition for me to get frozen instead of fresh. It didn't detract from them at all. And so to think about those things, that there's a lot of little things we can do that really won't change our lifestyle at all, and yet still be more, somewhat more impactful, I guess, in terms
Absolutely.
of more sustainable. Yeah, I'm just looking at these questions. Somebody asked about how the city looks at preserving green space. Now, I'm not sure
I may not be the best person to answer the question. And when it comes to preserving green space, I think there's a lot of policy associated with how we handle that. And so if you have a very specific question, I'm sure Karen will pass along those questions to me. And I can reach out to you with the policies on green space preservation more directly, or connect you with someone who can answer those.
Yes, absolutely. So I think, are there any other just comments coming through? So we've had a lot of great comments. People are really the topic, and also I want to invite people. We've scheduled a couple of talks already, but this is a series that's going to be ongoing. We may do it for a few months now and then not every month. But if there's a topic that you feel like we could find a speaker for and continue the series, then yes, we're going to continue that into the future. So please email me or Deb and let us know.
One more?
one more question. So sorry to all of you out there. It's like a whole conversation about who's commenting, who's questioning. and which ones are actual questions that need to be asked. And we're waiting for a question. While we're waiting for the question, let me go ahead and there was a question about solar. Let's see. How about right on the top? What are you talking about? Oh, what about preventing the covering of cooling, filtering grasses with the synthetic turf? That I think that might have to do with some of the city's playing fields.
Play fields, yeah. There is a lot that went into the decision to use some synthetic turf as opposed to natural grass. That original decision was made before I started in the city, but I do know that they're trying to use a more sustainable, biodegradable infill in those grasses. I know that really doesn't help with the heat absorption, but that was a decision that council voted to make. But we do what we can to maintain our grass in a healthier way. The city did adopt a pesticide policy this year, where we're reducing the overall amount of chemicals that we put on any of our property, and trying to use more sustainable organic items. Part of that policy includes putting out a report every January. So you'll see our first ever report should be available on the city's website by the end of this month. That lets you know some of the success that we've had with our work to reduce our overall pesticide use.
Okay, then somebody asked if you can talk just a little bit more about the community solar options.
Yeah, so we partner with Solar United Neighbors, and they run our solar co-op program for us. And so a lot of people, myself included, my roof is not ideal for solar because I have so many trees around it. And so because I have all these trees around it, I wouldn't get enough sun to justify putting the solar panel on my house. But that didn't mean that they had to kick me out of the co-op. So they offered me with other people whom they've assessed who did not have roofs that would benefit from solar to look at purchasing smaller solar panels to be put in areas that would be more beneficial for them to exist. Unfortunately, my co-op was very small. We didn't have the opportunity to find a location, but Solar United Neighbors is a great resource and they facilitate that entire process for us. We will have a larger co-op this year because we're going to do it more regionally. So it's going to be not just Montgomery County, but it will include Frederick County and some counties in Virginia, all kind of right in the region to work together to try to have bigger options for community solar. And really the way community solar works is you work to support a solar panel that is maintained just somewhere else, and you get the credit for the energy that's generated in that somewhere else location on your energy bill.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I think that's all the questions we have, except that people have been asking about the recipe from Miscellaneous Distillery. So if you go to the event listing, in the comment section is both the recipe and a video from Miscellaneous Distillery, not only showing you how to make the cocktail, but talking about how they use locally grown grains. And so their efforts at being more sustainable. And as Deb said at the beginning, buying local is a sustainable goal, and that's why we are promoting these local distilleries. You can do stuff right here at home. So before we say goodbye, I just want to remind everybody that next month's talk on February 12th, we'll have Samantha Briggs, director of the Clean Water Program, talking about the impact of salt treatments on our winter roads and how that affects the environment. And our guest distillery will be 10th Ward Distilling, and they'll be providing us with a cocktail suggestion for our talk. So until next month, as we say here, a little cheesy, so I'm a little hesitant to say it. Cheers to saving the world.